Thank you and good afternoon. As they say, my name is Nicole Colón. I work for Hispanic Access, but I am also a scientist and my training is in mycology. So I wanted to see a show of hands who knows what mycology is. Good. Do you want to define it? Mental health? No, that's psychology. So mycology, and what we're gonna see here is the study of fungi. So today we're gonna talk about the different types of fungi and how do they impact health specifically, but there's many roles that they have. I'm gonna present a medical mystery case. So this is our patient, 25-year-old Juan. Juan has no prior conditions. He was healthy. He was technically just fine until he returned from a hiking trip in Arizona with his parents, and hiking and camping trip. And after a week, he started developing fatigue, dry cough, mild fever, and shortness of breath. So he decided to go to the doctor, and then the doctor did some flu tests because those symptoms really relate to that, but they both came back negative. So he ordered an X-ray of the chest and a sample from his lungs for lab testing. So throughout the presentation, I'm gonna give you clues and information that is gonna help you solve the mystery and define what one has, and you'll get pizza in the end. So just pay attention and listen up. Before I go into what mycology is, I wanted to talk a little bit about where I come from and what led me to pursue STEM or a STEM career. So as they say, I was born and raised in Caguas, Puerto Rico. I come from a family of farmers. So the man that you see there is my grandfather. His name is Felix, and he's a farmer in Puerto Rico. And as a kid, I spent a lot of time in his farm, and it wasn't long before I fell in love with nature and agriculture in general. But as I started to grow up, I started to understand the challenges that come from being a farmer in a small island. So that really led me to want to help my family, but also my community. And I decided to pursue a bachelor's in biology at the University of Puerto Rico in Calle, 2011, long time ago. And I also started participating in the RISE program. The RISE program is a program that allows freshmen and sophomore, and I believe it's throughout the United States, to pursue research early on and do different internships at different universities, and you get paid for it. So I did not only get the opportunity to go and do research, but they pay me for it, and they pay for all the travel and expenses associated with that. So as an undergrad student, I went to 4 different summer internships. North Carolina State was my first one. Then I went to Michigan State University. In those, I studied plant biology. By the 3rd internship, I went to the University of Illinois at Chicago. I studied developmental biology. And then by the 4th internship, I went to Michigan State University and studied toxicology. At the same time, I was doing research at my local institution at the University of Puerto Rico in Calle, and I was studying fungi. So this is what really opened the doors to me defining that I wanted to be a mycologist. And after that, I went back to Michigan State University, did a year internship in toxicology, and then I moved to the University of Arizona and did a PhD in plant pathology with a focus on plant diseases caused by fungi. After I graduated, I started working as a scientist in an agricultural company called Corteva AgriScience, and my job was to develop mostly all of the protocols they use to test the different products that they were selling to the farmers. But for me, science was not really meant to be kept in the lab, so I also engaged with different community outreach and educational programs. So I was part of the National Geographic Society, and we did a lot of experiments and activities for our communities. I was part of the outreach steering team at the company, and we partnered with museums and schools to bring science to people like high schoolers like you guys. And now I work at Hispanic Access Foundation through the Senderos a la Ciencia program, just designing these types of activities for you. Okay. So what exactly is mycology? Mycology is the science that studies fungi. And fungi are living organisms that are really not plants, which is something that happens a lot. They define it as plants, but they're not. But they're also not animals. They have their own group, and we can find them everywhere, from the tropics to the Arctic. So you can find them in Latin America, in Europe. You can find them also in Alaska, in many places. And they have multiple roles. They can be decomposers, so they get rid of dead organic matter that we see in our environment and recycle back those nutrients into different areas like forests. They can also help other animals grow and obtain nutrients, but they can also be pathogens. And that's what I'm gonna be focusing on this talk, talking about how can they cause diseases, specifically in humans. One of the most interesting things about fungi is that there are about 2.2 to 3.8 million species that exist or are estimated to exist. And for you guys to have an idea, that is, if we combine all of the species that we know about whales, birds, and mammals together, it's even more. So there's a lot out there and a lot to study. And I know when you think about fungi, you usually think about mushrooms, the ones that we see in the supermarket, the ones that we eat. If you play Mario Kart, probably seeing the red mushroom. But they're not only mushrooms. There's 3 different types of fungi. One is mushrooms, which is a big group. But we also have molds and yeasts, which are microscopic fungi. So one of the activities that you guys did with Yashida was growing fungi in a plate. So you guys all receive a plate, and you put it somewhere in Renacer Foundation, and then after a week, your plates will look like this. These are microscopic fungi that we provided the nutrients necessary for them to grow. But if they don't have those nutrients, you're not able to see them, and you can pass it out if you want. So those are what we call molds. We can see them everywhere, and if you're in really humid places like your bathroom or your kitchen, you can see them growing there. But if you don't put them under a microscope, you are not able to identify them. And we also have another group, which is the yeast, which is what is used to make beer, bread, pizza, and other things. And just a fun fact, we call them mushroom molds, but that's not really a scientific term. They're really called filamentous fungi. Don't open the plate though. Yes? No, technically no, but during the process of making bread, yeah, you have living organisms that help that bread grow and expand. So the fluffiness, the yeast is what actually makes that fluffiness. So it's not like the bread is alive, it's that during the process, there are microorganisms that help them. So during the process, yes, after, no. So how exactly fungi make humans, animals, or any other organism sick is that they produce spores. Spores are part of their anatomy or their body, and they're tiny little kind of like balls or circles. So you see all of those plates that have the mold growing on there. That's what you're seeing in your plate. But if you put it under the microscope, you're gonna be able to see the entire anatomy, and you can see a lot of like blue dots. Those are the spores that they produce, and that is everywhere. Because they're so lightweight, you can have them in the air, so you're probably breathing some now. You can find them in water, soil, and animals, and they can be moved really easily. So in humans, most of the contacts that we get and how they make us sick is through inhalation. So they're in the air, you inhale them, and then you get sick. And then other types of diseases that we call mycosis happen through skin breaks. If you have a cut, if you have any sort of break in your skin, they can come and enter through there. Or in other cases, through the bloodstream, but that is like extreme cases. Any questions so far? Nope, okay. So mycosis are what we define diseases caused by fungi. And there are different types that are categorized or classified based on the organ that they're attacking, but also the symptoms. So we have what we call the skin mycosis, which is basically the entry, and what they attack is the skin, but we also have the organ mycosis, which are the systemic and the opportunistic. So when we talk about the skin mycosis, we have 3 different types. We have the superficial, which attacks the epidermis, so this is a 3D model of the skin, and you have in A, the epidermis, which is basically what we have here, what is exposed and our biggest organ throughout the body. And fungi will just feed on those dead cells that you have there. But they won't enter or penetrate to other parts. If you are talking about the cutaneous mycosis, if you have a cut or an injury, they can enter and they will be on your dermis, which is the B layer or the second layer. And then the subcutaneous mycosis will go even deeper to what we call the subcutaneous tissue, but then you will need to have a really big cut. And that can happen really easily in accidents and other types of injuries. So if you want to also pass that around. In case of the superficial mycosis, you don't get a lot of symptoms, just itchiness, discoloration of your skin. You can have creams and other types of antibiotics to kind of like cure that. The cutaneous and subcutaneous, because they're going into other layers of your skin, will get like an immune reaction from your body. So you will get itchiness, redness, swelling, and other things. And then for the organ mycosis, we have the systemic and the opportunistic. The systemics are really interesting, but also really dangerous, because they will start as a flu, and what you will get is a flu-like symptom, but they can disperse through your body, through your blood, and then they can get to other organs like your liver, your brain, and once they get there, it's really difficult to kind of treat them, and it can lead to the death of many of the patients. And then the opportunistics are usually surrounding us, and we have them, but when your immune system is down is when they actually cause diseases. Questions, comments? So now I'm gonna present some diseases, like specifics, pictures, symptoms, for you guys to kind of get to know what the different types of mycosis look like. So the superficial mycosis are the ones that are from the epidermis. So who here, and you don't have to raise your hand, I know this is a little bit personal, but who here has had fungus in your feet? No? Your toes? It's really common when you get shoes that are closed up and you sweat, you will get fungus in your toenails, you get fungus in your feet. Those are superficial mycosis that are caused by dynia or ringworm. And it's not caused by a worm, it's just called ringworm because all throughout the body, depending on where you get it, you will get these patches like a ring. And here you can see like the tinea growing on the feet, the tinea growing on the genitals, and the tinea growing also on the scalp. And you also get on the hands. And throughout, you only see those patches, but you also get flakiness, so your skin will come off. But that is really cured easily. When we talk about systemic mycosis, that are the ones that goes into your body, those are the ones that are most dangerous because you will find the fungus as a mold living in the environment. But as soon as you get them into your body, because the temperature change, they change the type or the morphology. So from a filamentous fungus, it will go into a spore or what we call a sac. And that sac, specifically, this is called valley fever or coccidioidomycosis. What that happens is that will start growing in your lungs. And once it fills up, it will burst and it will spread throughout other organs through your blood. And it can go into your brain in some cases, mostly your liver. And once you hit that point, it's really hard to find a cure because it's so spread out that at that point, you're probably having to have intensive care. But most of the people will just get flu-like symptoms. And in this case, valley fever, how we call it, is called by coccidioides, which is a fungus that lives specifically in desert areas. So if you go hiking, for example, or camping in Arizona or California, Mexico, and you kick the soil, it's pretty easily that those spores will come into the air and you will breathe them. And a few weeks later, you will get flu-like symptoms. When you get an x-ray of your chest, you will find nodules. They're small, but I can show you a bigger picture in the end. And when you stain any tissue of the lungs, you will get this kind of like sac forms or these balls that are basically the fungus growing in the lungs. This is an opportunistic mycosis. It's called candidiasis. Candidiasis is really common on babies because they're still developing that immune system, or it's common on people that are taking chemotherapy through cancer. Their immune system is really low because of that treatment, and this is caused by a yeast. There's two different types. You will get the mucocutaneous, which is a fancy name that only includes like the wet areas of your body. So we're talking about your mouth, your esophagus, your genital areas, your feet. That will grow there. What happens is that that particular yeast, you have it in your body normally. But when you have your system immunocompromised, it overgrows, and then you will get this kind of like patches that are white and kind of like mucousy or baboso, which, yeah. But it's really easily treated too. The other type is the invasive candidiasis. That is really also worrisome because that will get into your brain, your eyes, your bones, and other parts of your body. If it gets into your brain, it can lead to the death, and if it gets into your eyes, you can become blind. And it's usually caused, many cases, by malpractices. So if you're in a place that the syringe, when they're taking blood out of you, it's contaminated, then that's a point of entry. If they're using non-sterile equipment in the hospital, which is kind of where this type of cases happen, that is also a kind of entry into your body. So those are the different types of diseases based on the categories that I explained of mycosis. And when doctors get these types of diseases diagnosed, it takes an entire team of STEM experts to get it diagnosed. It's not only a doctor, it's not only a mycologist that will be able to diagnose this. As an individual, if you have mycosis on you, you have to go to your doctor. You have a clinical evaluator that will do that health inspection and ID, but they will also order different lab testing. So there's many different STEM areas that are connected. When you get infection in your lungs, they will take x-rays. You need engineers to build those machines. You need biomedical engineers to design how those equipment function and to train other people. You need technicians to run it. And when you do the sampling and collection of the fungi, then you're talking about microbiology and you're talking about microscopy and biology. You also get staining of that fungi, which we're gonna see in one of the stations, and that you need people that are trained for that. So it's not only just a mycologist, it's a team of STEM experts that are basically helping diagnose that. So we're gonna come to almost the end of the talk, and this is our medical mystery case. The labs came back, and what we're seeing, this is an x-ray of the chest, and what we're seeing is nodules. So the presence of the fungi in the lungs. When they took a tissue out of the lungs, they're seeing the sacs growing, and if they grow too much, they're gonna burst. And then when they grew it on a plate, they were able to see that it was a fungus that was causing it, and when they ID it molecularly, they identify as coccidioides. So which one of the four is it? Who votes for aspergillus?
Aspergillus.
Okay. Who votes for histoplasmosis? Who votes for coccidiomycosis or valley fever? And who votes for candidiasis? So, it's valley fever, coccidioidomycosis, because it's really common on desert areas, and he was hiking in Arizona. So, all of the symptoms that you see relates to that particular disease. Okay. So I want to end the talk talking about opportunities where you can learn more about fungi. One of the things about mycology is that it's really specialized. So you will have to get involved more into what is biology and microbiology, and then go into programs that are more specialized into the study of fungi. But here in Florida, there are different opportunities for you guys to get involved, not only in the biological side and microbiology side, but also in the biomedical side. So there's a list of different summer camps from universities that you can participate, like the University of Florida has a biomedical program for high school students. The University of South Florida also has a biomedical, mostly engineering camp, and also the Florida State University have their own programs. There's also shadowing programs at the hospitals that you can just go and sign up, and they will assign you a doctor, and you will follow that doctor and learn about what they do on the daily basis, and in some cases see actual diagnosis, operations, depending on what they're working on. Hospitals like Cleveland Clinic of Florida have them, Baptist Health also has them, and then the Jupiter Medical Center also has them. And then in that QR code, you will find 15 medical summer programs that are free for you guys to participate. Okay. And then I wanted to end the talk talking about the importance of having a mentor throughout your career, from high school to undergrad to your professional development. All of my careers, I have been filled with mentors. So this is Dr. Shad Lozada. He was the first person in my undergrad university to get me involved in mycology. So he's the one that trained me and that pushed me to do graduate school in mycology at the University of Arizona. And to this day, we'll continue our relationship as mentor and mentee. And then after that, I went to Michigan State and studied toxicology with Dr. Alexandra. She also taught me a lot and helped me grow. And then the rest of the individuals that you see here are different individuals or persons that have been really good at giving me advice, helping me grow as a scientist and as a professional at Indiana when I was serving as a scientist, and also at National Geographic, and right now in Hispanic Access. So it's really important for you guys to have those mentorship experience and learn from them the most that you can. And that leads us to what is coming from Senderos a la Ciencia. In Senderos a la Ciencia, we're developing a mentorship programs for high school students, particularly 10 to 12th grade. The idea is to connect you with a mentor that will guide you through the college journey. So we're going to talk about how to build your college application. We're going to talk about how to select your field, different opportunities for fields in STEM and science and health sciences, and just how to tackle college as a whole. So we are expected to just develop this program and run it by the fall. So if you're interested, you can come and talk to me by the end, but Renacer will be working with us to just launch the program and provide it to you guys.